Hi, I'm just letting the sound settle a little bit. Give it a little second. Hi, so welcome to the Sunday Service of Addiction Live podcast. My name is Ashley and this is Barbie.
Hi.
Barbara. Hi.
Sorry.
And each week it's very early days, but each week we're recording a live podcast and we're going to do a Q&A throughout just so that we can make it relevant to people who are listening. So my name's Ashley and oh God, I've got a bit of a feeling I need a babe. Nice start to my podcast. Nice and professional. So my name's Ashley. I'm an addictions therapist. I also specialise in trauma and childhood. I think they're all interlinked. Please try and tell us that I'm wrong, but I would like to hear. But I do think that is the root cause. And I've also overcame addiction. I think that's quite important if we're going to be talking about addiction, that I've been through it. And I've also experienced the pain of having loved ones who are going through addiction. So I kind of understand it from every angle. And I've studied it. I've got a master's and 2 degrees and I was doing my PhD in it. So that is me. Barbara?
So, I have been on both sides of the coin, seen it from the outside and the inside. I've tried and help reach out to people in addiction, but also I've been sponsored myself and supported people.
Bobby, I've got to say, your clattering around is not good for my ADHD brain, like with your knives and forks.
I'm doing my benches.
I'm listening. I'm hearing clatter, 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 clatter. Barbara, clatter, clatter. Addiction. Sorry, what were you saying? Sorry.
Yeah, I've experienced it from every side. I've had addiction. I've had a partner in addiction. That broke up. Family members in addiction. I've helped friends through addiction. And doing a little bit of coaching here and there with people. And still trying to reach out with love and light to people on the internet, recovery pages. Sometimes somebody just needs a little comment, just saying, "Keep going, it gets better."
Yeah. Do you know what I wish the reason why I do this is because I remember when I was in my early stages of addiction, I just had so much blame, like self-blame. I was really hating on myself and I could have done with just having a little space where people were able to support us and just kind of say, it's okay, we've got you back.
Yeah, and you find people in recovery are the most supportive of other people in recovery,
I think one of the biggest things, when people say, they say things like it's that my trauma or whatever I've been through made us into who I am today. My addiction made me into who I am today, and I am so empathetic because of it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it is. And I think it just helps you just be non-judgmental. And actually, I had a rude awakening on the last live I did where I've always been judgmental towards people who are judgmental. And I had a situation where I was being judgmental towards somebody who's been judgmental, and actually they were going through a really hard time. So I think I can't, and it was to do with addiction. So I can't even be judgmental towards judgmental people now. It's really humbled us in a good way.
That's good.
I don't think the humbling was good in the beginning. Like I've got to admit,
didn't feel good being humbled, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think
So we're doing a live podcast, so I'm not going to be saying hi back to everyone as much. But I will, if anyone's got any questions around addiction or wants to share something, we're just going to kind of weave it in. But I do a live every day, pretty much 10, and sometimes on the evening. So I can be a bit more informal then. But yes, but somebody has said stop being judgmental. So you said something brilliant to us the other day, Barbie, about judgment, because I shared about me being judgmental about judgmental people the other day. And what was it?
I said people that are judging people on other addictions or other actions, they'll be judged themselves on their actions. Like everybody's judging, so you shouldn't judge others. Like something like that, isn't it?
I can't remember. I feel like you said it a bit more.
I feel like I said it a bit wiser at the time.
had a bit more pizzazz to it, but that was the top and bottom of it. There was this there was something on a podcast I watched, which I
People
thought,
on things or something like that, and not saying it all. I don't know.
yeah,
It was a time. That's sorry. I haven't
there
got
was
Judge Judy.
Judge Judy. I love that. I'm no position to be Judge Judy. Absolutely. I saw something which was really helpful because I think one of the big things that we do deal with, and this wasn't the topic, we're going to be talking about judgment today, but we're on it, so we'll get on the Judge Judy train. But there was something I saw, and basically for me, I really struggled with the judgment, and I put a post up about it recently, which it was just actually a clip that AI took of one of my lives, and but on the clip I spoke about how it made us just really, really mentally unwell. And I saw this thing on a podcast. It was Matthew McConaughey, and he said, "No, sorry, God, right, rewind." I saw somebody put a post up that said, "Society is just sinners judging sinners," and then Matthew McConaughey said that sinners comes from, I think it was Greek, maybe Latin, one of them. Tell us if I'm wrong, if anybody knows. Get Judge Judy on the go. But it was saying that sinner is like an archery term and it means to miss the mark. And that really helped us. So, like, when people have been judgmental, it's people who were missing the mark who were then judging other people for missing the mark and actually
Yeah.
all missing the mark. So it really made us feel a bit better to think, actually, I'm not the only person who's failing because of my addiction that I had. Actually, everybody's has strengths and everybody has weaknesses. And I think that's been really helpful because I think even though I got over my addiction, I'm starting to realize that the judgment part is still lingering in my subconscious, that experience. And I've done a lot of work to let go of that judgment and shame, but it still stings a little bit.
Yeah.
Did you experience judgment in your addiction?
Very, very harshly, without much empathy. So that hurt. Do you know what I mean? And that's still lies there to this day of when you're ready to open up to somebody and talk. That judgment was shown from someone that I thought like would have had compassion and love for us. So
Yeah.
I know through being on the other side of addiction and seeing a member go through it, you know the story and and watching it, even though that it's gone on for a few years, like to still like be patient and offer compassion and not, you know, and not be like ostracized. So when
Yeah.
you show that compassion, but I also think before addiction I would have shown that, you know.
Yeah, do you know what though? I've got it when you were speaking there. So I've dealt with people who are struggling with addiction in my life, and I'm gonna hold my hands up and say I've been a little bit hypocritical because I've still felt some, not necessarily judgment, but probably like anger and resentment and upset towards the people, which is
Yeah.
really, I would say, very hypocritical because I've been through it. But I think sometimes it's quite hard to sit there and hold full compassion for somebody when really you're really struggling because you just feel lost with them. Like you're kind of thinking, God,
I
please, can you just
suppose
stop your
also,
hurting?
yeah, it also lies in like if somebody is in addiction and hurting themselves and maybe is doing shitty things is one, but then if someone's in addiction and continuing to hurt you, and I suppose cross your boundaries, it depends what that effect has had on you over the years. I
Yeah.
suppose to how sympathetic you can be.
Yeah, and I think that's something to be said about with addiction. If you're dealing with somebody with addiction, you need to have empathy, but also you need to have boundaries. And as a counsellor, so my main training is person-centered therapy, and they talk about like 3 conditions you've got to have as a counsellor. So 3 qualities that you've got to have as a counsellor. And it's unconditional positive regard, which just means not judgmental,
Yeah.
empathetic, and then congruence. And congruence means honesty. And I think when we're dealing with people who've got addiction, you've got to walk this tightrope of being able to hold empathy and not be judgmental, but also be very honest and be honest with yourself about your boundaries, be honest with them. And I think if we're not able to show up in that way, actually, I think it's better to put in the boundaries and put some distance, because it can do a lot of harm and damage to just be judgmental and to put people down and not have that that lack of empathy can be so damaging.
Sitting in judgment and hate and them lower vibrational feelings isn't good for your body. Puts your body in a flight, a sense of like fight or flight, and then emotions and worry and that, and so.
Yeah, I've had to. So I do think, like for me as well, I've got a friend who I really care about dearly, and he's really struggled for a lot of years. But his behaviours when he was under the influence was quite questionable, shall we say, a little bit ropey. And I had to get to the point where putting boundaries, and then my final boundary had to be, I'm really rooting for you and I'm going to be there waiting for you at the finish line, but I just have to remove myself, because I think sometimes to be there for somebody with addiction, we have to be open and honest with ourselves, like how much are we able to handle this? And you need to be able to gauge that and then show up. Do you know what it is? I'm Judge Judy's got a lesson here. Someone just said shut up, and I felt myself getting defensive. It's all right. Just go elsewhere. But yeah, that totally threw his. What was I saying?
I mustn't be getting all the comments.
Yeah. I'll see if there's anything about what people were talking about. Have to sleep. Addicted to vaping. So that's what we were going to talk about. So somebody said that they're addicted to vaping, and we're going to talk about different ways to handle triggers, weren't we, today? So what would you say your number one thing to do is when we're in them early stages and the triggers and the cravings are just outweighing your ability to say no thank you please?
Well, I think vaping might be a little bit harder because it's easily accessible, like you've seen people in the shops that can have a quick vape, but even if you're like smoking to a degree where it is, like 3 or 4 vapes or whatever a day, you need to start by cutting that down and thinking it's got to last us, because you can't just, I think, clearly stop with something that you're having such a high dose of. So you have to be mindful how you're doing it, and then to be able to deal with the triggers. I used to go at just a minute at a time, just a half an hour, and that's what you've got to do before you get days. But in that, be so kind to yourself, like we were talking about, what surroundings you're in when you get these triggers. So if you're somewhere comfortable in your house where you can put music on, have a bath, light candles, whatever you do to relax, it's easy. But it's when you're outside and it's more accessible. What would you do though if you?
So I'll give you one, but first of all, I just want to say there's Jason said I'm off at all the class A now, baby. Yes, I love it.
Well
So
done.
I'll give one of my things that I think is helpful for triggers. But Jason, have you got something? Because you're off and all. So I'm always interested to see what different people do. So for me, obviously, I've done training in addiction, which I have said before, and I've done a lot of training in addiction. And I actually developed an addiction when I was already in addictions like training to be an addictions counsellor, and very little of it worked until I built up self-love. So I have to just reiterate that probably every week. You've got to learn to love yourself. But I think one of the things that you've just said, Barbie, is learning how to love yourself. And what things make you feel good.
It's that yesterday, and she's like, "Oh, you've came so far, you've grown. Like, look at the things that you've done and achieved." And I was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "I feel like my spirituality has helped us. Like I'm very, whether people say hippie or witchy or into me crystals, but it's all a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I'm not too deep into it all, but just taking time out in nature, I found help. Like, like I used to have a field that I called me on that I just go and sit in with my dog, and so it's building your own toolbox up. So if mine was like angel cards and crystals and nature, somebody else's might be going to jiu-jitsu or where somebody else might just,
go for a run or watching Friends, whatever. Yeah.
It's whatever you need to put in your toolbox, you know.
Yeah. And I also think as well, finding out what lights you up. I really struggled to know what I enjoyed, so I had to start exploring things because I have a lot of clients who would come in, and this isn't just even with addiction, but just in counselling in general. And one of the first things I'd say is, what do you do that excites you? What do you enjoy? Have you got any hobbies or interests? It sounds like a really lame date question. What's your hobbies and interests? Um, but it would be really hard when we get a client and they say, I don't have any. And I really relate, but it's really important to find out and put yourself out there and think, okay, what did I enjoy when I was a kid? That's always a good starting point. What did I
Yeah.
enjoy then? And what can I do now? So I used to love dancing, like making up routines for Spice Girls and stuff. And I just like started dancing. I started putting on my music and having a 3-minute dance party in my house and dancing in my kitchen, pretending I was, I don't know who I thought I was.
Oh, that's it. I don't know what I thought it was. I was definitely a star in the performance.
I was definitely the star in the performance, you're right. I was rocking the show.
I enjoy hanging out with my friends, giggling like little kids, and like we all take the mick out each other and greet each other in the nicest ways. But them are the moments that like I treasure in my life, and it's about finding glimmers, which is our coping mechanisms that bring you that happiness and joy.
Yeah. And it's yeah, and do you know something else as well? So you spoke about nature, walking in nature. And one of my things was I actually got really into the first time, this sounds really weird, but the first time I ever like noticed nature was when I was knee deep in my addiction. And I used to love going out for dog walks and just going amongst the trees. And I loved it, but it was something I associated with the addiction. And it made us think there was so many things that I enjoyed doing whilst under the influence. And I had this kind of relationship where I thought, I don't want to do any of the things that I love because I enjoyed it. And it was like almost like reminding us of like this used to be so much more fun when I was under the influence, and I had to push myself out my comfort zone to reconnect with those things that I enjoyed, but sober, which was quite difficult. But when I got past especially the first 3 weeks when my dopamine started resetting, and I started going for the walks, and I was like, oh, actually, I really love this. It started to become, wow, I love this even when I'm sober, which was great. Yeah.
Let's be off. I have to keep on doing that. I've got my glasses on.
It's good with this negative comments. I love that Judge Judy. It's made us laugh. That's one of the things I'm healing at the moment is fear of judgment. Fear of judgment. So I'm just going to start calling myself Judge Judy. Don't come out. That's another thing. So that's just reminded us. Something that helped is, and I do this again with clients around mental health, but also works for addiction, is when you start to have that inner critic come out, to name it, and don't shame it, but just have a bit of fun, like a bit of tongue in cheek banter with it, and be kind to it and nurture it. So for instance, with the judgment, if I start fearing judgment, I can just turn around and say, whoa, Judge Judy, simmer down. But I did that with my addiction, and my alter ego was called Trashly. And yeah, I was just like, we don't need to do this trashly. We don't need to get trashy today. Let's just do something nice. Well, I love that you put that. Tassie's put a sunflower in the comments. That's my symbol of my new life, because I moved into my new house. And this is where I moved next to Barbie, and my whole life shifted after I got myself sober and got myself checked out of a mental hospital, as you do. And the opposite is there's a Chinese called the sunflower, and I always think of sunflowers in my recovery, like new life.
You got yourself checked out and you got sunflower landlord yard in it, so official.
I sunflowered a bit hard.
Yeah.
That is the thing I will say with addiction. A lot of and not the main reason why I had addiction, but something that was certainly made us susceptible and hindered my ability to stop successfully, was the fact that I had undiagnosed mental health disorders. And I think it's quite important to kind of understand ourselves, not necessarily get diagnosed. We don't necessarily need labels and sunflower lanyards. But I might, I do. I'm not griefing people here. I'm one of those.
Yeah.
I'm a sunflower child. But I think it's really helpful to start to use the sober brain to look inward and think what's driving
Yeah.
the addiction.
Mhm.
What was the hardest thing about recovery for you? And anybody who's watching as well, if you want to answer that question, feel free.
It's difficult. There was a lot. Having to train your mind again. It was a lot because you get in your own head and different thoughts and stuff. My spirituality had to remind myself, I'm not me, I'm not them thoughts, I'm the conscious behind that thoughts. So when I'm getting beat up and I feel like crap or I wanted to use and stuff like that, I had to come back to that higher self and go, you don't have to. That's just your brain playing tricks because you went through this. You need to do something good for you, for your body. So even though I already knew that, and like I found times where I wasn't doing that for days or weeks, and because I was like, it was difficult. Like, well, you see, like it was hard. So I think realizing that you're not your thoughts, and you can train your brain into not thinking that. Like you say, how long does it take to get a habit? 20 odd days.
21.
21 days. So if I woke up for 21 days and looked in the mirror and was like, Bobby, you're beautiful. For 21 days, that would be a habit in the neuroplasticity in your brain, because your brain, whatever your brain's thoughts are, it's not aware if it's good or bad, if it's the imagination. Yeah, like your brain wires and like you are beautiful and you look in the mirror. So it's coming back to that self-love and training your brain into saying that you're beautiful. Because whether when you're in addiction and you're feeling so low, you look at all your flaws and you think shameful about yourself, and it's hard. So you have to engage in that self-love and changing them patterns. So that brain training when I was in a low place was hard to do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tassie said the hardest I would say is not going back. I fully agree. It's that feeling of never is so overwhelming, isn't it? I think it's because for me, and Tassie, I don't know if that's the same for you or Barbie or anyone listening, but for me, where with my recovery, I felt like I had to say goodbye to myself. It was like a grief and loss of this thing this identity, something that I really enjoyed. As much as it causes a lot of pain and torment, I actually really enjoyed it. And I think sometimes we shy away from saying that that we do enjoy the thing that we're addicted to, because although it starts to get worse and worse and worse. But there's a reason why we were doing it in the first place, and it's not because it was awful. And I think sometimes we shy away from that. So yeah, I think it's when you have to say to myself, like, oh, I'm going to let go of something that, one, I have enjoyed doing. It served a purpose, but also it felt like a version of myself. And that was really hard. It was like grief and loss. And then also scary, because then you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to do this again. Like, that's what? No. But I think that goes back to what you said, Barbie, just 1 minute at a time, 1 day at a time.
Yeah.
You're worth it and you've done great. Yeah, exactly. I've got to say though, it is the hardest thing is, for me, I agree, is saying that I would never go back. But I think the best thing is just every day, just think, wow. And like I get reminded all the time of like, God, I'm actually killing it out here.
Yeah, doing well, isn't it?
Doing all right, actually.
Uh-huh.
It took a hot minute, but I'm doing all right. Well done, me. And I think I'm now so in my pride of what I've done. We always say we couldn't even pay us to go back to that. Yeah. But yeah, it's same to you, Tassie. I feel like you. Tassie, are you? Did you say that you are sober? Or are you trying to? Or upside down, smiley face, love that. That's one of my favourite emojis. Yeah, what's the best thing about being now that you're recovered?
Well, I don't know. Appreciation. I've got so much appreciation for everything, everybody. Like I'll go outside and it's like the trees are just painted green for me. Do you know, like I'll go to the car park and play in a puddle with my niece and nephew and just have the best time. Like wherever I am, I'm happy and I'm grateful. You know, I work hard, I've got a nice house, it's warm, I'm fed, like my daughter is, and my bills are paid. And
Yeah.
although I think you said when you're just going along your little mundane life, I was like, hey, don't knock it. I am so happy. Like I see people around me with like more money, better jobs, like the miserable people, like I'm happy and I'm in gratitude for recovery and everything around us.
Yeah, I think you know what it is. I think that's a good word. A
That's
good way to describe recovery is absolute misery. And I think when you go from absolute misery to then like getting a self pride, I do. I'm so appreciative of everything. Let's see. You just read that out, didn't you? I'll
yeah.
read it out since you haven't got your glasses.
I'm getting the
Having
feeling.
Yes, Tassie is recovered. Brilliant. Having 100% control and no monkeys on my back is the best. Yeah, absolutely. It is that you don't even feel like yourself. You feel like you just got this thing like prodding at you, like pecking away. You can't,
Yeah.
everything's just clouded by the addiction. Like, even when I went to see friends, I was just thinking, I want to get home. Or if I was with friends, like, it was like I actually got rid of quite a lot of people in my life, kind of put them on the back burner so I could spend time with the people who were doing what I wanted to do. And even then, I just prefer to be myself in the biggest mess possible.
The biggest mess possible.
That's what I was aspiring to. Like,
Mhm.
how messy can I get today? Yeah, no longer hostage. That is such a good way of describing it.
Yeah, definitely. Mhm.
Yeah, no longer hostage. It's so freeing. And I think that's why you really appreciate the little things, because you couldn't appreciate anything.
Yeah, that's well said. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Have you seen that meme? If you haven't, I'll send it to you. But there's a meme where it's like a little bird, and it's depicting addiction. Yeah, Bob's
Uh-huh.
nodded. There's
I'm
a
like,
bird gets a little like thing, and it
the
just
little
gets.
yellow thing, and then it goes up so high and then drops, and then it tries the yellow thing again, and then each time it tries it, it's not going up as high, and then each time it lands, it gets a little bit more battered and bruised, and it comes to the end, and it's like it's having this little bit, and it fills up with life for a second, ready to jump, and it can't even jump, but
Yeah.
it's so old and battered and grey, and it's just like you're chasing that high, but once you're addicted, you can never get it. It's never as high or as good as it was.
Or even if you do get something resembling it, it's just gone, and then you know that you're gonna be chasing it again anyway. But loving
Yeah.
that video, it's like starts off really bright yellow and then goes to grey. And I think that's like, to build on what Tassie was saying, it just like your life goes grey, you're
Yeah,
so
you're
hostage.
right. Uh-huh. Yeah, you're right.
It's really scary as well, because like that hostage is such a good word to describe it. It's really scary because I was thinking to myself like so many times, like, how far is this going to go, and am I ever going to stop? And that fear started to get louder and louder, especially in the last year and a half, where I was really starting to think, I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to stop this.
Uh-huh. Like I've heard like some people get out when it's actually too hard to stay in there, you know.
Mm.
But it's difficult. I don't there's not enough services at the minute. There's not enough help out there. So it's down to people in recovery to try and pull, pull everyone in and just hold everyone up. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I had a friend who was in recovery, and the person that they dealt with in the service was so judgmental. With the word Judge Judy, uh, they were so, they were so judgmental, and they'd never been through addiction, and they were very much, oh, just do this, do that, and they didn't have very much compassion. It was the person, I've got to say, I was very proud, managed to keep on smashing it, but they really struggled with the service that was available to them, and it was the only service that was available to them. And hats off to them. They actually did brilliantly, but also they were in such a waiting list to get the right recovery support they needed, that they ended up putting themselves in quite a dangerous predicament to get off the substance. But yeah, the services, even if they are there, aren't necessarily great.
Mhm.
That's not to say that about every service, or there's some fantastic services out there.
Yeah.
So the
Mhm.
stress, Tassia said, the stress of getting whatever you're addicted to and the cost after you've taken it, then the guilt. No addiction has good results. Absolutely,
Mm.
100%. And it is with anything. I said to someone yesterday who's they're in recovery, but there's sometimes go back and forth every now and again, but they've got a hold on it. And I think sometimes that's the thing as well that I'd like to talk about maybe in a different episode. But recovery isn't always abstinence for everyone. But we spoke about this yesterday. We said you get that high for that however long you're doing it, but then you've got however long after of
To think
the
about
guilt.
that, and then that's when you beat yourself up. I've let myself down, or an idiot. Why did I do it? And like because you're on that such a low vibration, the guilt and the shame is just absolutely crippling.
Mhm.
And then that
And
goes back to the feeling of the self-worth that we were talking about the other day, you know.
definitely. And it's like the cost of self, I think it's a good point, because I think it costs physically, like financially, but it also, I know that's not everyone. I know there's people out there
Your
who
time, like your time being messers, you know, especially if it's a drug that you're physically addicted to, you know. Like I know my ex would go out and have to somebody say, "Oh, it'll be an hour" or whatever, and then it'd go on and on and on and waiting, or there would be times where it wasn't available, so you're poorly. So it takes a lot of time.
yeah, and
Yeah.
there's no HR service or complaint service for
Yeah.
you dealers, is there? Because they never bloody answer.
Being messers, taking all day.
Or do you
So
think they weren't employed properly, wouldn't you? Think they weren't paying taxes?
I know. So,
In in desperate, people do desperate things. Yeah, this is one of the things as well. I think
mm,
you also have to deal with the shame of the things that you've done in that desperation. So as Hassie said, in desperate times people do desperate things, and because you are desperate, I think desperation, hostage,
yeah,
these are good words, and you do
yeah,
things that you're not so proud of, and it brings out a side of you that doesn't resonate with who you are, like before or after. And I think
yeah,
that's really hard as well, because then you've got to deal with the shame of the fact that you're doing these things out of desperation that don't align with who you are, and it starts to taint the image of yourself that you have, which is
yeah.
then going to
And then
drive
you
into
start
using
like you've
again.
got to be late or leave your friends early to go home, and then you'd start like cancelling family events, things that you'd never cancel, or just not be there and lose bonds that you made, isn't it?
Yeah. Or even more extreme, like one of the things that I struggled with, that I did out of desperation, which like I was just, I don't know if desperation is the right word, but just out of my being addicted, was I ended up, I got clean when I got pregnant, and then I ended up slipping up in my third trimester. So then I was having to deal with the daily shame of justifying to myself that it was okay, and that I was doing it in little bits and I couldn't help it. And then dealing with the shame that, oh my God, like I've got a newborn, like an unborn child, and I'm doing this to this. And then that was like really horrible, because as a mom, I like to think that I do everything I can at the best I can for my kid. And dealing with that shame of like, actually I was the worst mom. I'm doing air quotes here, because I think I know in myself I wouldn't have been doing that if it was. I know how hard it was. So I tried to have compassion for that version of myself, but dealing with that shame of like, oh my God, I'm doing this and I'm so disappointed in myself, and I feel like such a bad mum from the outset. It was really hard to deal with, and there was a lot of healing around that to say, you're not a bad mum, and you like, it wasn't ideal. I wouldn't ever recommend that to anyone, but also trying to have compassion that, yeah, desperate people do desperate things, and that is what you were in, just sheer desperation for something. And looking back, I'm like, why?
Uh-huh.
Like,
like you
I
said,
know the why, but what?
why was I so scared to take that leap and do it? Because actually, I did it, and it was quite easy. Well, it wasn't easy. There was rocky moments in there, as well with yours. They were trying to medicate you, and so that was it. The psychiatrist that gave you the bipolar meds, and because you were still going through your first steps of your recovery and on different medications, that some of them did make you quite poorly. Like, like you went through it, like, I think more than others, all these feelings rushing back was difficult.
Yeah, it was having to do, yeah, because I was so what Bobby's talking about is when I my recovery road was pretty intense, which I imagine most people's are. But what happened to me is, so I got sober when I got pregnant. Then I relapsed in my third trimester. I got sober when I gave birth, and then I had two relapses, and they were quite short relapses. But the problem was I was dealing with it by myself. So I then reached out for support. That was like the worst well, worst and best decision. I got the support from some people, but I got severely shamed. But I was also going through an episode, so I didn't realize I had bipolar, and I had got diagnosed with ADHD, and they put us on ADHD meds just as I stopped my recovery. So it was almost like a bit like a methadone for me. So I quit my recovery, got diagnosed the same day. So I had been strategically reducing down to this point when I was getting my diagnosis, because I was almost positive I had ADHD. And as somebody in the mental health field, I knew that ADHD and addiction, it goes hand in hand. So I thought, right, I'm going to reduce down. I'm going to get pay private to get my diagnosis. I got diagnosed, and then basically they started us on my medication. But then I didn't realize I had bipolar. And what actually happened was I was then I got psychosis. They thought I had postnatal depression, and I was on psychiatric drugs, which Tassie's just said psych drugs are the worst. Absolutely, because then what happened was I was on quetiapine, and I had to go. I realized it was turning us into a zombie, wasn't it?
You weren't yourself for her.
I was struggling to be a parent, which the whole reason why I got sober was to be I'm doing quote unquote a good mom. I don't think struggling with addiction makes you a bad mom. And I will just say, I do think the fact that I managed to do as well as I did in spite of addiction is something I'm proud of. But I wanted to get sober so I could be be the best version of myself as a mother for my son. And then I was put on these psychiatric drugs, which actually had the same mongy feeling as the drug that I was addicted to, but without the benefits. So yeah, then I had to get off them, and I actually went cold turkey, and Barbie had to help out with my son. I had to get family to help out with him because I was having physical withdrawals. Yeah, it was horrible.
And I think you've seen them creeping up, because we went out for a meal in Newcastle, and then you were like, I don't feel right, and it was just around like about an hour after you took your meds, and while we went, all right, well, we'll have a drink. Should we go back? What do you want to do? Like, you got worse quite quickly.
Yeah, it was.
Like, yeah. So so that was like another thing, like another bump in the road of recovery.
Yeah, I had to recover from a drug that was prescribed to us, which is crazy. And the thing is, when they put us on that drug as well, the quetiapine, so I had got sectioned, and that was because I was put on a drug in the first place, which was for my ADHD, which is a drug really. It's just a medical a medical grade. Why is that word escaping us? But I got put on the drugs, and before, when I was in the psychiatric unit, they were saying to us, "I want to put you on quetiapine," and I said, "I'm an addict who's recovered. I don't want to be putting a drug in my system until I've spoke to a psychiatrist." And they wouldn't let us see a psychiatrist. It was just mental health nurses. And in the end, I spoke to a psychiatrist, and they said, "No, it's fine." But actually, I ended up having to recover from a psychiatric drug, and it just makes you think, like, is that any better than? I'm not saying don't go on psychiatric drugs, absolutely not. As a mental health professional, I just want to make that clear. But for me, I just thought, is this any better than the drugs I was using in the first place? And I had to find alternative ways to manage my mental health. So Tassie said, "Oh, thanks, Defbat, for the little." Woo, love it.
I was like,
Most of the psychiatric drugs do more harm than good, and studies say they are no better than a placebo when it comes to helping a condition. Yeah, absolutely. I think I agree with that. For me, I think there was a time when I definitely needed to be on them because I was experiencing psychosis. But I think, there was a time when I could argue that I needed to be on I needed my drug of choice for my addiction because it was serving a purpose. But I feel like there are better solutions out there. We just need the right support and professionals and studies to help us find the correct approach. So now I manage my mental health holistically, and I've had dietitians and I've done a lot of training and different things. And I think we need an alternative. So I fully agree with that, Tassie. It's just finding out what is better. I've been on a concoction for over 15 years and eliminated 3. I've got 1 more to reduce before going off. I love that, Tassie. Yeah, I love that. What are you doing differently then to help you now that you've transitioned from being on a concoction of psychiatric drugs to not? Again, I just do want to express, because I'm aware people are listening. I don't want to advocate for not being on psychiatric drugs, but I also don't want to advocate for being on them. I'm very much, it's up to the individual.
yeah.
But I think by the sounds of it, Tassie's had quite a similar experience and outlook as me.
Please don't consult your doctor.
What was your experience of me on psychiatric drugs? Like, how was that presenting compared to now that I'm not?
Like you were like a zombie, you're very like pretty and ADHD and like full of beans. It wasn't you would be out for a meal out with the kids, and it would be like you're unaware. Not only are you unaware, like you're like 3 or 4 seconds behind. Like, Ash, you okay? And you'd be like, yeah. And then smile. It wasn't you, and like it's like we're little friends, like we're with my sister, like our little group, like we were concerned, and even you were. And then when you started saying like, I don't feel right, like this is going to be bumpy to come off, I was like, just start reducing the dose. Like you weren't yourself. Like even just conversations, it was just like a ghost of you. 10% of Ashley's, yeah.
Yeah. I experienced that. So what happened was I kept forgetting. So I didn't realize just how bad I was, but I forgot to pick up my medication. And I was walking to school. It was the day before my birthday. So it was the day before I turned 35. And I was walking my son to school, and we were having a little laugh and we were chatting and we were saying, look at the flowers and, oh, look at these ants. And we're stopping to look at the ants. And I had this realization, oh my God, this is not who I am. So I actually said to my psychiatrist, like, I'm not getting those drugs. I'm not putting that in my system. It's just, I'm not being the mom that I want to be. And I'm not doing it. And they really advised us against it. And I would advise people against it because I did go cold turkey off them. But yeah, and I just thought, I'm not entering my 35th birthday feeling like I'm on drugs. I felt like I was on, because my addiction, if for the people who don't know, was ketamine. And it was exactly the same feeling without the dopamine buzz and I'm having a line. It was just the mongy
More
feeling.
cost effective, I'm sure, though.
Like, I definitely would, if I was going to recommend, I'd say quetiapine over ketamine. Like, let's be real, but it's cheaper. Bloody hell! But you think because somebody's prescribing you, I'm being prescribed a drug, and to Defbat said money making industry. Yeah, it's just like a mass dealer, isn't it? You think, oh, someone's prescribing us, they're telling us it's okay, therefore it is, and actually, I had worse physiological effects and also the same mental effects, but only I felt depressed as well. I guess the only thing I didn't have was shame in it because it was okayed by society. It's a good thing to take the meds, so I didn't hold the shame. But actually, I think physically I felt worse than my addiction. Right, I've got Tassie. So I asked Tassie, what is how have they got off the psychiatric drugs, what support, and they've said, I'm saying she, I don't know if Tassie's a boy or a girl, they've said, or maybe are they, I keep forgetting about me. I keep forgetting about my pronouns, guys. I'm sorry about that, but this is just me being scatty. I've got an awesome mental health team. I have a lady that I have seen for the last 5 years, face to face. I have phone consult with another lady, and I've done a lot of study. You know that, yeah, that's brilliant. I think I've had the same. I haven't had a team of great mental health team, but I've had different mental health professionals at different points who have been fantastic. There's been some rubbish ones, I'm not going to lie, but I've had some fantastic ones and a lot of study. Yeah, that's really helped me understanding myself, understanding my conditions, understanding the weaknesses, but also the strengths. Yeah, I think quite similar. Stress-free, ketogenic diet, better sleep. Yeah, I don't do ketogenic diet. I'm a vegetarian. So ketogenic is, so we have ketones, and a ketogenic diet is, if we have ketones, it basically, God, I feel like I've not got the right time and energy to explain it, but basically it's to do with something that our body produces, and you can achieve ketosis through fasting or ketogenic diet. I do fasting. So, but it basically, what happens, it's to do with your stem cells, and they go around and repair everything, and they get rid of malignant cells, and really, really quickly. So if anybody's wanting to look into the ketogenic diet or fasting, I do an 8-hour window. It's actually really great for your mental health, because we've got the brain gut is attached to each other through the vagal nerve. I think that was quite a poor way of describing that, but yeah. Work on yourself, don't worry about anybody else. I'm a girl and a mom. I love that. Shout out to the moms. It's bloody hard. It's bloody hard. And I don't even have my addiction to fall back on. What do you say, Barbie?
I said it's absolutely brutal. Like, my daughter's 22 now and grown up, but like I still have your son around us a lot. I've got my niece around us a lot. I babysit a lot, and I just see like parents run ragged, and I do remember how hard it was, and now it's brutal. But like when I see you in the trenches, and I think, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. That week I come round and like there was toys all over. There was his picnic, like, and he was a bit unwell, and he was a bit unwell, and I was dropping my dog off at Ashley's. I was like, "Oh, Ash, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm leaving you in the trenches." She was like, "I'm ready to go over the top."
I'm ready to do what I did. I forgot about that. I'm ready to throw myself over onto the front line.
Yeah, I was like, "I'm so sorry."
I was sat there hiding, like in between I've got some cupboards, and this is my new spot. So it's like, in the corner of the cupboards where they're like that.
Yeah.
And I'll just sit in the corner like this. And my son's like, "Can I have some more sweets?" And I'm like, "Yeah, anything. Just give us a minute. I'm so overstimulated."
But
Yeah.
he's amazing.
Tassie's also said low carbs, no sugar. Yeah, that really, I got a dietitian, and I started working on my physical health from every angle, and studying my physical health. I didn't really understand it. And my main way I've studied, so obviously I've studied mental health and addiction through like legit mediums, but I think I know just as much about physical health through just watching Diary of a CEO, because you're just watching like leading experts in the field give an hour lecture basically, or Andrew Huberman. So yeah, just studying it. My son is 25. He's a successful young man. I love that. I've got a son. Yeah, I love boys. I love being a boy mom. I wanted a girl, but I'm so glad I'm a boy mom.
Oh, I've got a girl, but I wanted a boy, and now I've got Tommy and Slush.
Yeah, he's a bit brutal, mind.
He loves to hate me in the nicest ways. He's a little tank, doesn't he?
He calls that butt cheek Barbie.
Butt cheek Barbie, yeah.
Butt cheek Barbie, just humbling you, as if you haven't been humbled enough in life.
Yeah. Oh, I love us really. It does. So like Bob would come home from school and I'd bump into him coming in the shop and he went, "Oh, Annie Barbie," and give us a cuddle. I was like, taking all of this cuddling while I can. Kids are
Yeah,
funny. Uh-huh.
it treats you mean to keep you keen, but it works.
Yeah,
Typical
yeah,
bloke.
yeah.
Typical lad. Well, anyways, I'm starting to get a bit tired and we're coming up to 50 minutes, I think is quite a good time to end the podcast on because it's a 50-minute hour in counselling. I've got
Oh,
this weird thing with numbers, me. I need it. Like we have
counselling. That's tight.
So the reason why you have a 50-minute hour in counselling is because you're supposed to have 10 minutes between your next client. So if it's a sensitive topic, you've got a little bit of overrun or a bit of
Right.
time to just like do something to calm because you can't. So what happens often is you'll have a client and they'll start talking about things which are quite deep near the end of the session, and then you kind of you get to this point where, especially if it was an hour to the dot, where you're like, I know you've just opened up about whatever, but time's up tomorrow. And then you're like
Mhm.
kicking someone out of the room. It's a lot more online now, but it used to be in person. They used to
Uh-huh.
do a lot of face-to-face counselling, then they would have to leave the room, cry in a mess. And you're
Yeah,
like,
so you
see
have
it,
that
so
10
you
minutes.
can use that.
See, that
So
makes
I used to face. I mean, now it's online. We just maximise the hour quite often. But with getting somebody out, I always used to take that 10 minutes to just like laugh about something, debrief, chill out, and just try and get to a place where you're not going out feeling emotionally charged.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I've really enjoyed this live. Tassie, it was nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
been lovely speaking to
Mhm.
you, Tassie. And it's really nice. I think one thing I'm starting to realise the more I speak to people on these lives is it seems to be there's I've always known that there's a thread with addiction. There's a lot of themes, but I'm starting to see more and more now the people who are recovered. There seems to be a lot of similar themes on how you recovered. So for me, I've dealt with my own addiction, but I usually work with people who are in active addiction. And it's really nice to see people who are in recovery and they're saying, you know, it is about my body, it is about getting out and nature. And I'm starting to see common themes among people who are recovered.
Mhm.
Yeah, which is good. I like it. It's interesting. But it's been great
Mhm.
speaking to you, and it's been just catching up with you, Barbie, as
Okay.
always.
Until next week. Thank you.
Until next week.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.